Finding a good comedy isn't always easy in the anime sphere. Most struggle to strike the right balance between story that keeps the viewers engaged and humor that brings levity to the situations presented, filling in the personality of the work. Marriage of these two is incredibly difficult, as not just does there need to be humor, but consistent humor, consistent style, and that style should probably resonate with the audience so it doesn't come across as mean-spirited, corny, or just plain dumb. Writing a series in a way that captures all of that is not an easy feat, which is why I wanted to take a look at the slice-of-life rom-com sweeping the anime circle today, Tonikaku Kawaii, and probably throw my 2 cents in on why you should be watching it. And before we get too far into it, why don't you subscribe and hit the notification bell for more content from me? I know this probably annoys people sticking it early in the video, but it definitely helps. This series has a simple but satisfying plot, though admittedly, it requires some suspension of disbelief to buy in. Our main character is named NASA, which is pronounced the same as the American Space Agency NASA in Japanese. And he was named as such intentionally by his parents because, well, they're both weirdos. Since he's a kid named like that, people tended to poke fun at his name growing up, leading him to wanting to make a bigger name for himself than the space agency. So he studies his ass off to get super good grades in school, that way he can get into a good high school and, well, who really knows from there? All while saying he's the man who's gonna reach light speed before NASA. And if that makes you cringe, it's supposed to. After deciding he's aiming for the very top school in his country, NASA heads home, only to find a girl who's just the cutest that he's ever seen. Suddenly infatuated, he crosses the street to go talk to her, only to notice a truck coming right at him. But this isn't an isekai, so Truck-kun is foiled by the super cute girl rushing in and shoving NASA out of the way just before it hits him. After saving his life, she tells him to just lay there and he'll be fine, but he refuses. He jumps up and chases after her so he can ask if she'll go on a date with him. She agrees on one condition, that he has to marry her, to which he agrees, and then promptly passes out from his injuries. After waking up, he didn't hear from her for 2 years, so he started working crappy part-time jobs in the service industry in hopes that he'd meet her once again. Which happens, as she shows up at his door with a marriage application out of the blue, and the two promptly start their life together. While the setup sounds cheesy and admittedly stupid, it's meant to be that way in an effort to show a positive and exploratory side to marriage. The fact that these two don't know much about each other lets them both grow as people and a couple, and that's, luckily, what the anime chooses to focus on. It's easy to brush the humor in this series off as characters just getting needlessly embarrassed over basic relationship misunderstandings with the opposite sex, but that's a shallow first impression belying a deeper meaning. Most rom-coms either wall off the romance and comedy, where it has romance, but it also has comedy, or it tends to favor using the romance despite one of its characters. This anime instead tends towards using romance as a vehicle for humor. That's preferable, since it's using all of the elements in its story to reinforce each other, while also spitting in the face of many of the tired tropes associated with the genre. Like the one person who has a crush on the main character, but isn't the love interest getting heartbroken. Usually that's played serious where it takes time to mend that relationship, but here it's brushed under the rug because the audience and the rest of the cast knew there wasn't a chance, and jabs that the character should just jump into the moving on phase rather than moping. And that's a pretty common tool this series uses. Taking points of drama most romance stories rely on, like jealousy and relationship troubles, and subverting them by having the cast act rationally to sidestep the situation, either pointing out how silly it is or missing the irony of the cliché entirely by being oblivious. You know, because they have faith in one another and their love isn't so easily shaken. And that's some high praise for this show. That demonstrates that this isn't a franchise that built itself on clichés for a tired romance with some jokes, and that it genuinely approaches the rom-com genre, that it has some clever commentary on the tropes used, while making jokes that land that don't demean the characters or their situation. But on the other side of those punchlines, the characters tend to come out stronger, either personally or in their relationship. It gives an insight, usually in the reaction to how they feel, or what they like about the other. On the surface, it looks like a massive abuse of anime blushing, But that's showing that these cool and collected characters have a softer side and the other can bring it out of them. While innocent, they're well-rounded people who don't always think lewd, joking, or cute thoughts and shift between them like, well, anyone would. So not only is the comedy handled well, it's leaving a positive impact on the story. And that's just some god-tier writing right there. And through the jokes, you see a deeper aspect to the characters, giving them more dimension besides a cute face who acts cool. You see an over-analytical Nasa, a Tsukasa who values kindness, and a supporting cast that has their own desires. Animation for this series is probably some of the best that a slice-of-life comedy will get, outside of something like Nichijou, but the models here are appealingly simplistic. This allows for a ton of facial animation, so the cast can be molded like clay for reactions, giving a surprising amount of emotion. Since the series setting is so grounded, being modern Japan and all, with an oddball cast, the situations and plot are relatively subdued by anime standards. This is where seeing mouths drop and eyes go wide and almost take over the entire face sells what the characters are thinking or feeling. Not just for laughs, but also to tell a story. And the framing of many scenes is above average, selling more that subtle mood. It's rare to see a comedy anime work so hard to sell a relationship through its cinematography and animation instead of just focusing on jokes. That's a nice subtle touch, and I can certainly appreciate it. The polished aesthetic where everything is so neat and sparkly reinforces the upbeat tone the series has as well. The bright colors, use of highlights, and variety of settings is what keeps the series feeling fresh, even though the cast is incredibly small. This also shows the studio isn't cheaping out on the production by choosing more dynamic color palettes and ambitious scenery to instill that these characters are in a transitional period of their lives. I don't ever feel visually bored when watching this show, and that's a high mark for an otherwise simplistic looking comedy. So, should you watch Tonikaku Kawaii? That's an easy answer if you like comedy or romance anime. This one's cute, funny, and leaves the viewer with a feel-good message. And for that, there's not really anything I can complain about. Check it out, because it's definitely worth a watch this season. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and I know you already subscribed, but check on that just in case. You can also join my Discord with a link down in the description, and if you really want to support me, you can head on over to my Patreon. There you can pick up some extra perks like voting on what I do next. Thanks for watching.